Today, I plan to conclude our discussions on Nehru's thought. So, what we will do, we'll try to look at the whole process of planning that Nehru understood would be able to balance democracy with socialism in India to some to some extent equitable distribution of resources in India along with individual freedom. What he thought of that, there would be participation of the private sector, but at the same time, the public sector would play an important role. So this is what we will see. We will see, how he tries to achieve through the means of centralized planning. And in fact, if we look at the whole planning process, and the point I was trying to make yesterday, that it was Mahalanabi's model, right? Mahalanabi's model, which Nehru tried to implement, in India's case, especially from the second plan onwards. Now, the kind of centralized planning that was envisaged under this model, would kind of enable to achieve its objectives. And why there were limitations in terms of achieving the objectives. So that's where I think we can start, and then what I will try to do, I will link it with the features of the planning process in India, which was the salience of Nehru Mahalanabi's model. Now, one, that the way whole planning process was modeled as according to the Soviet example. So that is where role of bureaucracy would be important. So instead of making the whole planning suitable to India's conditions, it would give rise to a centralized bureaucracy. So the whole process itself would be bureaucratized, right? And bureaucracy not only would play an important role, but it would come to, in fact, control the whole process through the means of what generally would be characterized as, and what generally would be, even criticized as license quota raj. So this is what would become the typical feature of the planning process. So it would give rise to the bureaucratic model, where bureaucracy would control the whole planning process. So that is one. Now, why it would happen, license quota raj, right? License quota raj. Now, this is how it was. This is how it was criticized, right? License quota raj primarily because for participation in certain sectors or certain areas, license from the government would be required, and the government would also they decide the quota beyond which production or manufacturing cannot happen. So that is how it would be known as license quota raj. The government would control, right? government would control in terms of giving permission to the to the private sector, that in what all areas it can operate, number one, and number two, it would also decide the limit, right? Limit beyond which the private sector cannot undertake production beyond that, right? And limit also would be that the uh, uh, kind of uh, technology that it can import, right? Then the kind of agreements that can be made with foreign companies and all. So that's what would become its characteristic feature, and that's why it would be known as licensed quota Raj, because government would control, right? Government would control in terms of giving permission, and government would have control over the limits as far as the whole output would be concerned, as far as the whole production would be concerned, right? Now, as I was trying to add that, this would be something very much. This would be something very much, very much, an outcome of a feature which would be centralized in terms of its operation. So, since everything would be centrally planned and controlled, so that is where this was bound to become a feature. This was bound to become the feature of this specific model. And second thing, of course, okay. Okay, I think we had got disconnected, huh? Okay, right. A second thing, this was bound to become, this was bound to become a feature of this model, primarily because, this was following the Soviet example, right? Soviet, yeah, it's not clear. Someone was trying to say something. Okay, it again. Okay, just. It's, it's not clear. It's not clear. It's not clear. Let me check my internet connection. Right, it's getting disconnected time and again. Just give me a moment. Huh? Just give me a moment.